Welcome back again, guys. Second videos in the series What Shall I Buy? Well, this video are for those of you who have some experience with Cerwin-Vega and up until now maybe have had a pair or two, or maybe you have explored 4 or 5 different models. Who knows? But you feel that, hey, I want to explore what Cerwin-Vega has to offer that is a little bit different from what I have heard so far. Because let's face it, a lot of people that are familiar with Cerwin-Vega, most of them are familiar with what happened and what came from the company from D series and onwards. So meaning from 1980 to 83 and until today. But there are some hidden gems in between those years even. So that doesn't mean that maybe not everyone have had the chance to hear it. And there's regional things that goes on here too that we have to think about, and that's always been the case with Cerwin-Vega. Going back as far as the early 70s, there always has like this model is here, and there's a certain model that only sells here, and Europe has a model that kind of looks familiar and the same as the other one, but they have a different model name to it. D series is a great point of case in that. You had the D series that you had 2 different models, basically same series, but they looked a little bit different. They had the European model had the D9EE or D9E, and here in the States you had D9. So there was a little bit regional differences as well. So when you look at models that you may have heard, they might have a different name somewhere else and have a slight different look. But we're trying to not go into that area now. But let's say you are a normal, everyday Cerwin-Vega owner, listener, who maybe have had a few pairs, maybe you had 2 or 3 or 4 pairs. Let's say that, and you have had good experience with it, but you want to explore what else is out there. So let's just jump right into it. And some of the newer stuff that you maybe know about and have seen, I've heard people talk about, is the CT series. And the reason I take this into this video is because I want to try and open up people's mind to listening to something different from Cerwin-Vega. Because most people are big box speakers and that's it, you know? So the CT series was made in Denmark by Dali, and it came in 2 models, the CT165 and the CT330. And this is a totally different type of sound than what Cerwin-Vega was known for. So if you're looking to broaden your horizon, you want to add to your collection. You don't want to change your collection or substitute your selection, because if you have the big box speakers, you love that sound, but you want to add on to a collection. You want to add on to experience. The CT series will give you kind of like an aha moment. It was like, what is this? It's totally different, but it has that Cerwin-Vega DNA, but it's different. So I can recommend that if you are somewhat familiar with Cerwin-Vega and you know it, CT 165 and 330 is absolutely 2 models you should look into and explore, because they will give you a different take on what Cerwin-Vega was all about. And we're continuing in that roam and down that path, and I want to say same thing apply here. If you want to seek out something different, something that you're not used to, these 2 models, and these come as you can get this as a complete set even. They will offer you subwoofers as well. The CVT series, they had 2 series here, series 1 and series 2. I say go for the series 2 because it was a little bit improved. The CVT series that I recommend is the CVT 100 and the CVT 120. Like I said, there's the regional things there. In some places, these are called something else. They're called CVT 10 and CVT 12. In some places they're called CVT 100 and CVT 120. And this was also due to the two different series and stuff like that. So I would say go for the 100, the 120. The 100 is a 10-inch woofer and mid ranges and tweeters. The 120 has 12-inch woofer and mid ranges and tweeters. There are slim tower speakers with a side mounted woofer. So it's not going to give you the deepest bass, not the most brutal, in your face, punchy bass. It's a very, very balanced, well played, just as a CT series. The CVT and the CT are very, very hi-fi speakers from Cerwin-Vega. And I remember springing the CVT 12 or 120 on a friend of mine in Norway. Well, gosh, it's 20 years ago now, 22 years ago. He was into high-end hi-fi, and he was looking for some new speakers, and he got a pair of these from me, and he was like, I can't believe this is Cerwin-Vega. He said, he said it over and over again. I can't believe this is Cerwin-Vega. And he's like, these are almost as good, high-end quality-wise, as some of the speakers I have. And I can tell you, he has a lot from like Bowers and Wilkins and Monitor Audio and Snell. Yeah, I think he has a couple of speakers from Dali. He had a huge collection of good speakers, and he said these are very, very close. So he got a pair of those. So if you're looking for something that is not kind of like typical Cerwin-Vega, CT and CVT is absolutely a couple of models you should look into. Now we're going to take us a big leap here. We're going to go way back in time to look at these three next models. I'll give you 5 today too, and I'm going to give you 5 on the third and last video too. This is, now we're talking serious jump into what Cerwin-Vega can give you. And we're starting with the 432R. This is so different from what most people are familiar with from Cerwin-Vega. It has nothing to do with anything like you ever heard from Cerwin-Vega before. The sound is fuller. It feels more mature. It's more detailed. It's not that in your face techno disco speaker sound. It has authority, it has bass, it has power, but in a different way. It feels like it's applied in a different way. It's almost like, how can I say it? It's almost like riding a bike when you have the regular Cerwin-Vegas. You're riding your bikes on a flat surface. And you go like, okay, sounds good. And then you ride your bike downhill when it comes to the 432R. It gets a little bit accelerating. Your blood starts to pump a little bit. Your excitement goes up. You become more engaged. Yeah, I know. As a owner of Cerwin-Vega, when you have the big box speakers, you go like, stomping your head and stomping your hands and stomping your feet and stuff like that. Because you kind of listen to music that kind of like do that to you. But when you have the 432R, it gives a totally different experience. I mean, 80% of my music that I listen to is metal, rock, and progressive music. That's where I live. And a 432R with some progressive music, that can be anything from Airbag, Pink Floyd, Queensryche, Pagan's Mind, Circus Maximus, stuff like that. Progressive rock and progressive metal. It sounds so different. It sounds like it has more air in it. It's almost like, okay, let's take a speaker model that is like very many people have. RE38, okay? It's, when you're listening to the RA38 or any other model, it's like squeezing a 4-day-old bread, okay? It's kind of like tough. It's kind of hard. And then you have the 432R. It's like squeezing a fresh piece of loaf. It's so soft. It's so airy. It has so much air in it. And that's what you get when you listen to the 432R. That's maybe the best thing I can say. When you sit back and you listen, let's say you put on some Pink Floyd, and you listen to Marooned, or Coming Back to Life, and you hear that guitar intro on Coming Back to Life. You won't get that experience on the RE38, I tell you. Because on the RE38, it will sound like a little bit constricted, a little bit limited. It's very loud, it's very powerful, but it's like it's contained. When you put it on the same type of music on the 432R, oh my god, it sounds like it's like all around you. It sounds like so big, so grand. So I can't say good enough about the 432R. If you have a really really good, as I said yesterday, if you have a really good amplifier, and this speaker deserves a good amplifier. If you have a 432R, then it's you do yourself a justice and a favor, and you do the speakers a justice and a favor by getting something really cool of an amplifier. And we're talking about, don't do a freaking pay PA or Pro Audio amp on this one. You go out and you get yourself either a Class A, a Martin Logan, Electrocompagnia, Krell, Macintosh, Accuphase, Pass Labs, you get my drift, or even a Parasound. You get my drift here. You need good high-end amplifiers. If you want to improve your sound, you can do it in two ways: better speakers or better amplifiers, or both. 3 ways. That's it. Don't pay attention to your, the LP player or the record player or your CD. If you get good enough quality there, most of the time you do, or if you use your phone, just maybe sure that you have a good DAC or something like that. But amplifiers and speakers, if you want good sound, that's where you put your money. And they go like this, as like a hand in a glove. Your amplifier is your hand, and the glove is your speaker. If they don't fit each other properly, you know what's gonna happen. You're gonna get a dud sound. Okay, next model that I recommend, if you are somewhat well known with Cerwin-Vega, is the 12TR, the signature series from Gene Cerwinski himself. He's approved this speaker model. He designed the speaker model. It is maybe the most correct sounding speaker that I'm talking about here, beside the 432R. It is such a good speaker. I can't say it in any way. If you use the big box speakers, don't think you're going to get the same type of sound from the 12TR as you get in an RE38 or an LS12 or LS15 or VS15. It's two different worlds. We're talking disco and full Bruce force over here, and pound, 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 loud, loud, loud. On the other side, you have the 12TR and the other models I mentioned, which is sound quality, experience beyond belief. It's sometimes the same with the 12TR. And I'm gonna try and find the words for this so I don't sound too similar to the other ones and too boring over way. Many people say, well, if they sound that correct and they're nothing like the other ones, are they kind of boring? No, because it's all about enjoying the music for what it is, trying to get as close as to what the producer and the artist wanted to be when they recorded the thing. When you have big box Cerwin-Vegas, the music you play on them are often, very, very often, music of high intensity. I'm not saying always, but very often, or high power and high energy. And very often it's either metal or electronic or pop or something like that, which are beneficial to have speakers like that with high energy and punch and loud sounds. While on the other hand, if you play like, let's say, Dire Straits or Phil Collins or Pink Floyd or Hall and Oates and stuff like that, which I also listen to because it goes under the term rock. These are the 12TR and the 432R will do you very, 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 very good favor if you have good amps, and it will give you a music experience that are totally different than what you had over here. And this is more to enjoy the music for what it was made for. Okay. The last that I want to talk about is that you can look into to upgrade into or add into is there's two speakers here in one. There's the 12T and the 12 and the 15T. The same here applies as I talked about in the 12TR. Um, the 15T is giving you a little bit more closer sound to what you're used to in the big box speakers. A little bit more bass, a little bit more punch. The 12T is punchy too. Don't get me wrong, um, but again, the total experience of the sound is totally different than from what you had over here on the big box speakers. Even though they are capable of playing loud, don't get me wrong, they play loud, they play with punch, they play with all that stuff too, but it's in a very different way. When you sit down and listen to it, you go like, you get a different experience than what you did with the other VS and the RE and the D and the DX and so on and so on. There's a totally different sound here from that to the other. And that's what this list reflects. This list reflects that it takes you from one place where most people are fitting in this little corner over here, where you have all these newer models, the modern things, the sound that made Cerwin-Vega famous. The sound in the 70s from the HEDs and stuff didn't make Cerwin-Vega famous. They gave them a lot of followers, but it was in the 80s when they really took off because of the big box speakers and the big sound. That was what brought Cerwin-Vega into the stratosphere. They was already up there, but they took him even further up. So the 12TR and the 12T and the 15T are kind of like cousins in a way. So the sound that you get in the 12TR is very close to what you get in the 12T and the 15T, even though the 15T is maybe like a little bit more, I'm here, because of the 15. And once again, you have to use good amplifiers. On these 5 that I have, well, there's 6 because 7, because there's 5 series, but there's 2 from some of them. So let's see what we have here. The CT series, the 165 and the 330, you can use a good hi-fi amp. You should use a good hi-fi amp that has something in the realm of 100 watts to 150 watts per channel. And we're talking here, you can go like, you can go Rotel, you can go Parasound, you can even go Nod, you can go Denon, you can go Electric Company. There's so many options that you can do with this. You can go even vintage power amplifiers. I would not use receivers on this, even though they're smaller speakers, because they deserve to be fed good power and good sound. So integrated or preamp power amp combo is what I recommend on the CT series. You don't need the brutal things of 250, 300, 400 watts. 100, 150 watts per channel, but of good quality. The CVT series, the same, 100 to 175 watts. 200 watts will also do good, just because they have a 10 and 12 inch woofer in them. But again, you have to have good quality amps here. Now, on the 12TR, the 12T, and the 15T, I say that the brands that I mentioned earlier in this video, and if you can get amplifiers that are 200 watts and up, 2 to 400 watts, in somewhere in between there, where you have amplifiers with good power supply, both on the in section and the out section and throughout. You need an amplifier that can breathe, that can push this without becoming exhausted, if you know what I mean. And then, of course, on the 432R, this is a speaker that maybe needs the biggest amp and the most powerful amp, and I would not use a Pro Audio amp on it, just because it deserves to have better sound quality amplifier hooked up to it. And as a listener, you will enjoy it way more. You might think there is no big difference between a power amp made for Pro Audio and a power amp made for hi-fi. They're two different worlds. Two different worlds. The only company that kind of have managed to bridge that in some way is Carver. And you might ask me, which model? Well, if you want the power from a pro audio amp, but you kind of want this sound quality from the sound hi-fi amps, there's two models that Carver made. There was the PM series and the PM 900 here. It's very nice. It doesn't have a fan, so you don't get the fan noise. And then you had the ZR. The ZR was some of the last models they put out before they got sold due to financial issues. So the ZR has a fan, but it's very low noisy, low noise floor fan, and it's a Class T tripath. So the switching on it is not like super sharp and cut offy as a regular Class D. So I like those amps. The CR, the CR 1000 and the CR 1600 was very good amps. So you can use those, but if you find them, they're kind of hard to find. But I just recommend use good hi-fi amps on all of these speakers. So let's do a recap to end this video. If you are somewhat an intermediate, as I can call it, you're not a newbie, you're not you can't really call yourself a pro. You have had 2 or 3 or 4 models, and you know Cerwin-Vega more than most of the people. Then your upgrade should be and can be the CT series, the CT 165 and the 330, the CVT series, either the CVT 100 or the CVT 10 or the CVT 12 or the CVT 120. If you want to go even further, you can go to the 432R, which is awesome. And then of course you have the 12TR, and you have the 12T and the 15T. These are the speakers that you can go up to and kind of look into. Follow for the next video. This is for those of you, the next video that comes out in this series are for those of you who feel that you are above the average or above the everyone else when it comes to having experience with Cerwin-Vega, but you want to build on your experience, you want to build on what you have already had. What else can be out there to explore and enjoy? And I'm talking, this is going to be explosive, guys. So take care, stay tuned.